see you were coming. So.
Give this to my team.
Wow.
Jessica, my Harbor report's the wrong one. They didn't put the new one in there. It's okay.
Aaron is not going to be here.
Okay.
If you knew that.
Jessica, can you check? This is the wrong PACAB report.
I did not know that. The
Okay,
only one that we,
I sent you the wrong
Carl
one. I
said
can
he's
get it
not
from
going to be
afar.
here, so we're just missing
If I remember
Bruce,
right.
but
It's okay, I'll just let them
come
know.
in later if need be.
Can you get through there? Yeah.
Oh, good, we can start now.
He didn't hear you.
He didn't.
I think you're funny.
Thanks, Christy.
I got it. I'm actually surprised to see him.
Olivia, do you know what time that meeting is tonight? I was going to mention it, the sustainable sewer.
Sustainable sewer, I think it's at 6.
6? Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you.
Pretty sure I sent them.
Yeah, and I talked to Lori, they're gonna try and capture that presentation so we can share it.
And you're going to share it on?
I'll share it on civic engagement if we can get it, yeah.
Okay, all right. I'd like to call this March 11th meeting of the Port and Commerce Advisory Board to order. Ms. Paquette, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have an extra packet?
I don't think any of us.
Oh, yours must be at dispatch. She'll go back.
I didn't go. It doesn't matter.
Just a moment. She has to do the roll call. That's next. So
She go get you a package.
she's
Yeah.
going to get the packets from dispatch.
I stole one.
Thank you everyone for being here. We'll get started in just a moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could we get roll call, please? Thank you.
Hughes is excused. Jaffa. Here. Lawrence.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Lemus. Paquette.
Here.
Chair Snyder.
Here.
You have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 4, citizens' comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. Is there anyone signed in?
Phil Kaluza on the interconnect.
Mr. Kaluza, welcome.
Hi. Lord, thank you very much. My name is Phil Kaluza. I live here inside the sewer city limits. I just wanted to give you a little update on my little solar project that you all know. About a year ago, I requested the city to make a few changes, and I passed it on to you guys, and you guys passed a resolution making those changes. That seemed like it opened the door to somebody to put in some solar panels. City adopted it in November. I went ahead and decided to take advantage of no snow, and I put my solar panels up on my roof and ran my one little wire down to the disconnect in the breaker panel. I had the City of Seward building inspector come and inspect all the field wiring. Everything was fine. Winter came and everything kind of sat. I put in my request for approval to the utility back in November. In January, I got a 28-page email, cover page, some babble, and then a whole lot of cut and pasting. It was just kind of the game that we're playing. I just today received really a much more formal letter requesting some specific stuff that I have no problem with reading, I guess, but it's just part of the game. So it's been 4 months since I put in my request. And one of the things I did do that I wanted to bring to you is, in the code it requires an application. Well, we don't really have an application. We have this checklist that's kind of a somewhat bizarre statement. Basically, it just covers code requirements. And what I gave you, and what I wish to have you guys consider, is adopting an application form similar to Homer's. And if you look at this, really just wants basic information. If it's a solar system, it really wants to know the size of your system so they can make sure the transformer is good, and the manufacturer. And then on the bottom, they want you to do a check out whether or not you meet these two code requirements, the UL 1741 and the IE 1547. These pretty much comprise all of the code requirements you need for a renewable. Now, we have a man here that understands the code far better than I do. And it's been changing over the last 30 years. In California, it keeps kind of pushing some of the stuff. And that's really the basic requirement that the utility needs to certify it. The field wiring really is all done by the local code people that do, the electrical wiring stuff. So I think we can eliminate a lot of this redundant language that's really just all part of those codes. If we took out everything that is not listed in these codes, it would be a one-page application. So I just hope you guys could consider adding that to your list of things to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else signed in?
There's no one else signed in.
Is there anyone else in the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, move on to item 5, approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda and consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the agenda? All right, seeing none, maybe get a roll call vote, please.
Approval of the agenda and consent agenda. Paquette,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Chair Snyder.
Yes.
The agenda and consent agenda have been approved. On the consent agenda, we have approval of the February 5th, 2020 PACAB regular meeting minutes and direct the clerk to order Robert's Rules books for the board members to use during their term.
Thank you. All right, item 6, special orders, presentations, and reports. Beginning with item B, the Alaska Railroad report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, PACAB members. Just letting you know I have a head cold that I've had for a couple weeks now, but I have been taking my temperature and I do not have a temperature. So I'm being very responsible about my sickness, and I'll stay 6 feet away from the harbor master. My written report is included in your packet. I might just throw out some highlights. As the marathon wrestling tournament this last weekend was a success. They estimated they had 480 wrestlers. So that parking lot was full, the hotels were
Amazing.
full, the restaurants I believe we're seeing, hopefully not the bars too much with those kids, but people were in town. The next big event will be SERVS, and that's the annual training that's in the terminal and then also on the water, and that'll be April 17th. We're continuing repairs on our cruise ship dock, knowing that we want to have that dock continue through its useful life. And then this summer, as we're working forward with our request for proposals for our public-private partnership, we are down to 2, Global Ports Holding and also Holistica Destinations. So as we work with those two, we annually have a trip to Miami to go to the cruise ship convention in April, and they've, I don't know if they've officially canceled it yet, but I don't believe the railroad will be attending, and I think that with the bloodbath right now with that industry, they will not be holding that conference. But separately, those folks have been coming to Alaska, and we've been meeting with them. And then also, we're starting the process to apply for either a build or a federal port grant, and that's with our freight dock, the lengthening, the widening, and the extension of Port Avenue to direct that industrial traffic away off of that Port Avenue highway intersection and getting it more rightly so and safely so through our industrial property, then out straight to the highway. I want to address, obviously, being the port with the cruise ships, I think the public and also this board would like to know that we are actively staying abreast of, virus concerns. The state just this morning declared a state of emergency. We've been working quite closely with the Coast Guard, with the CDC. I talked to the cruise ship companies. Some of the items being implemented are taking of temperatures, looking at passports for previous travel. If someone says they haven't traveled somewhere, they're actually reviewing people's passports. So if someone chooses to lie that they haven't traveled to one of those destinations of concerns, they will be restricted from going on the ship, and there's potential legal ramifications to that. So as that's emerging, that's a new picture every day when we wake up. Just know that everyone's very aware of it. We're taking steps. As a transportation line already, we've continued to run the train between Anchorage and Fairbanks. So we've already geared up since early January, late December, additional cleaning protocols. We've had a weekly meeting work group, and those things will continue, looking to the future, and then also continuing the practices that we have in place. And then I don't think we have time to talk about, and I won't talk about all those practices, just because I know later in your agenda you have the medical community here, which is much more appropriate. But we're coordinating with other agencies. We're initiating preventative sanitation members, and we're working with employee welfare and options. And then another piece that we don't perhaps have time to talk about today is economic ramifications. We don't have those numbers yet. We're clearly reaching out. We don't know what that's going to look like, and obviously that's changing again day by day. I've had no ships cancel. Well, let me back up. We've had some ships cancel for different reasons, so our agenda the schedule looks a little different than what's currently posted online. But we've actually had 2 ships add to the itinerary, 2 more Viking ships, and those are the ships that we really want in the community. Those are the ships that stay 3 days, and that's because they did not want to go to their Asian routes. They're coming here directly from other routes. They don't want to expose themselves to that situation. So that might be good for Seward, but other than that, I don't know the economic ramifications. And I was doing research on something else, so I just want to share one last piece of information. Just in case you're ever curious about how many train passengers come into Seward, I only checked the southbound on the coastal. I figured you don't care how many people leave Seward on the train. But passenger numbers last year on that Coastal Classic that comes in at, basically 11 a.m., it was 40,000. So I'll continue to track that number. I didn't go back any further with my research on what that looks like in the past, but I just thought you might like to have that information.
Thank you.
So that's my report today. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me.
Yep.
The 40,000 was last year?
Yes, correct.
Have you seen, is the railroad seeing any decline in reservations for the coming year? I know
We haven't seen a decline in reservations as of yet. But again, we're watching that closely. A lot of that isn't necessarily this far in advance. So I'll just have to keep the board updated.
Any other questions? Thank you. Feel better.
Thank you.
Okay, up next is the Chamber of Commerce report. This is a written report in our packet. The Executive Director, Jason Bickling, sends his apologies. I see that our board chair is here, or our board president. Would you like to say anything?
No, I didn't come first.
Okay, all right, just wanted to check. Okay, so Harbor Master's report.
So I have to apologize, I sent Jessica the wrong one. I didn't update it. I have an updated one, I just dragged the wrong one, but I did it from afar, so that's my excuse. So most of the things that are same, I did, the appraisal process is done. Right now I'm writing 43 letters to folks and letting them know, and then sending in copies of the appraisals out, so there's a little bit of increase, but not really bad. And then I wanted to let everybody know that we're going to be going before council here next month for, to change the code and the tariff on how we process the daily rates for transient vessels, because the new software is working great. The transition's going good, thanks to MIS and stuff, and so we'll go before council to get that changed, and then it's going to be a great, it'll help out on a lot of that. That's our biggest complaint on the harbor, is that daily rate. You know, they don't come in and pay in advance, they gotta pay it, so.
Excellent. Questions for the Harbor Master? Thank you guys for your work on that. I know that's a complaint that I hear the most from people, so I think that's going to be a great change for this summer. And I see we don't have an administration report on here. Okay. So that leads us to item F, presentations. And we have a coronavirus presentation today with Kristen McLean of Providence, Director of Quality Infection Prevention, and Stephen Clegg, Providence Emergency Management Coordinator. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Chair Snyder, if we can back up 1 second. So the reason there's not an administration report on there is the Port and Commerce Advisory Board's administration is the Harbor Master, so it was kind of redundant to have an administration report, a Harbor Master report. So Mr. Regis and I decided to take that one out.
That makes total sense.
And so if you did have a
I
question
like it.
for the city manager, you can give it to me, and then I can process it through her to send it to you via email. If you had a
Perfect.
question, okay?
No, I think that's great. We always kind of skim over it. I hadn't
Yeah.
looked that closely at the agenda. Thank you. Hi.
Hello. Thanks for having us come. We have the situation with the coronavirus seems to change minute by minute, so we did provide some handouts up here as well, mostly from the CDC. So it's important to know that there's a lot of information out there, but please go to a reliable source. So please go to the CDC or the World Health Organization to get the info. They're the best ones out there. But what we wanted to do today was just kind of talk. I wanted to give a general what coronavirus is, so that we can have an understanding, and then Stephen's going to talk briefly about community preparedness, I believe. So anyway, if you have questions, we're certainly available for those. So what coronavirus is, it's a virus. There's known coronaviruses that have been around for a while, but this one is new, and so that's why it's scary, because it's new and no one has immunity to it, so that's why it's so scary. What's been happening by the coronavirus? So it's spread by droplets, which is very similar to the flu. So if you cough or sneeze and those fluid droplets are floating through the air and you inhale it in, then that's one way to get it. Though it's droplets, so they're heavy, so they only go about 6 feet. I don't think you were quite 6 feet. But anyway, so coughs and sneezes are kind of the most common way. So the majority of the cases that they can tell so far are coming from close contact, long, prolonged close contact with someone who has the disease. They're not sure if it's spread on surfaces. So if you cough and there's the virus is on the table and you touch it and touch your face, it's possible to get the disease. So that's why we are stressing hand washing and cleaning of surfaces. The good thing about coronavirus is it's not norovirus. Norovirus is very hard to inactivate, as you probably know from the cruise ship industry. But coronavirus is very easily breaking apart from just friction, so washing hands with soap, doesn't even have to be a disinfectant. Cleaning surfaces with just regular alcohol, peroxide, bleach, or any regular household cleaner seems to take care of it just fine. So that's the good news. So what we need to do to prevent the spread is to break that chain of infection. So wash your hands, clean your surfaces. Approximately, I think the data I got yesterday, so it's going to be different today, 60% of the people exposed will get some sort of illness, and approximately 80% of people that get the illness will be mild, 80%. So there's a very low percentage of people that actually get overly sick with the disease, but unfortunately it ends up being our elderly and our immune compromised people. So they're at the most high risk. That's where we've been focusing a lot of our outreach. You know, we've been reaching out to the senior center. We've been making plans about what we're going to do with sort of Mountain Haven with a nursing home to protect when and if there is a case here in Seward. So those are most of my notes. I brought this half sheet. I made it half so you could take notes on the other half. This is from the CDC, and this just has some general information, but this is some great stuff going on with great information for people. So I think, you know, for those of us that are young and healthy, there's not a lot to be scared of. There's going to be those occasional outliers we were talking about earlier that you hear about, but in majority it's going to be our older population that we're going to have to try to protect moving forward. So, do you have anything else to add to that part, Stephen? All right, so that's kind of what it is, and I'm going to have. I did want to mention the symptoms are a dry cough, respiratory illness, and a fever. And it's 2 to 14 days is the incubation period, so you could be exposed and then 2 weeks later get symptoms. Which is why they try to quarantine people for 2 weeks with that. So it's, because they don't kind of have that nailed down, it's kind of unsure how long things are going to take to spread in a community. I just noticed when I was reading this morning that out of China, they're saying a lot of the information was good, but they didn't know if they had all the information out of China, but they're actually getting really good information out of Italy. So we should have a lot, as watching that daily and all the information coming out of that, how it's spread and who's getting it, and who's getting sick, and all of that. So check the CDC website for all this. All right, Stephen, I'm going to give it to you. It's okay.
Any technical questions about the virus itself or infection or any of that for Kristen? I'll talk more about communication findings. Anyone have any anxieties or anything specific?
So public's not allowed.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
My presentation.
Yeah.
All right, let me get my notes. Sorry.
We're so helpful. You ask me later.
Yeah. Thank you, Kristen, and thanks for allowing me here today. So my role is the Emergency Preparedness Coordinator and Safety Officer for Providence Seward. So my dedicated role is as our not only liaison for Providence, Alaska-wide and system-wide across the country, but also to provide support to the city and the community in that aspect. So one of my, obviously right now there's a lot of information that's being updated constantly with coronavirus and all public health. So one of my privileges is to be able to manage that information real time and to make sure that the correct information is going to the right channels. So right now the main authority still remains to be the CDC website, their website and their information, because the state of Alaska also refers to them, and even Providence ourselves we do too. A lot of now the planning side of things, obviously there are local contexts that need to be planned for, so the information such as that we provided is all the same information, but I think it's important that the city is addressing this from that community-wide vision, how we can address and target these messages specifically for our communities and the demographics that we have to support. I'd like to just give, make sure I'm following my notes here. So I think it's pretty well known, and we can see all of the cases now that are in the U.S. It's not an over there problem. Pretty much we can expect that the COVID-19 will be pretty much everywhere in the coming weeks. So it's not an if, it's a when, and most likely not to create or anything, but it's probably already in some of our communities in Alaska. We just, as Kristen said, a lot of times the symptoms don't present, so people won't go in specifically to be looking for coronavirus specifically. Now, as Mayor Christie said this morning, they did announce that Alaska is under a state of disaster emergency specifically for this, for coordination and resources. So with that, the public's going to be more, I guess, sensitized and wanting tests. So we work really close with the Community Health Center. Obviously, we're partnered with them down at our emergency center, so we have pretty strong daily planning meetings to look at how we can respond, to make sure we're coordinated. And also, as Kristen mentioned, at our long-term health care center, we've got plans because they're among the most vulnerable populations in our community sitting up there. So, and as you may have seen the news from Kirkland, those are the people that, a lot of the deaths that occurred in the country are from those facilities. So we do have planning in place to, and as we get into the flow of people in and out of those, we will be, communicating to the community any changes in access to the health center. So there are plans in place to, right now, isolation or prevention. It's going to come here, so we're really looking at how to mitigate our most vulnerable populations besides the elderly and immunocompromised are our first responders. So that's police, fire, EMS, and our healthcare providers. So what we're asking, kind of the broad messaging is, if people are sick, whether they think it's COVID-19 or not, that they don't come in unless they need medical care. Call into the health center, get pre-screened. I'll tell you in a minute about a couple of tools people can actually go online. And Providence just put out a tool today. I think it might be adopted in similar forms across the country, but they just put on there where it's a virtual assistant that you can go to and ask you some questions. There is a health emergency line for information. It's 211. I'm not sure if you've heard that, but any questions, not just with COVID-19. Now, I've heard that number might be a bit overwhelmed at the moment, so some people have had mixed success with there. I've called a couple of times just to check. It's worked for me, but there are online resources, and of course, we can always point people to go to the CDC. If they call us, we prefer not to, because we have, as you know, we have a small hospital here. Our healthcare capacity is quite limited, so any disruption in our fire, any of our emergency services is quite disruptive to our community because we have limited capacity. So if we do get any kind of infection, whether it be flu or anything that puts a strain on our ability to provide services, health services, it's pretty important that we mitigate that. So again, we ask that then we get into the prevention control, people self-isolating, looking at opportunities for distance learning. I know the school system's talking about, okay, what if we, there's a lot of discussion about, okay, how are we going to keep people with social distancing and really lower the burden on our healthcare system? If we lose, a couple of our nurses or doctors, then we're already at capacity. We don't have a lot of surge capacity. And the country as a whole, and as well as the state of Alaska and Kenai Borough, they're not going to be able to provide a lot of extra resources. Of course, now with this declaration of emergency, that might help a little bit, but we can't expect that. So the message I can get out there is let's protect our community. And I could talk for hours up here, so I'll slow down. Really, another message. So I was on a 2-hour meeting with Kenai Borough this morning, and there was a whole mix of cities and emergency services and health. Okay, I'm done. But what I saw is what Mayor Christie had initiated a community coordination meeting last week, and we're actually, the discussions that we're having today for the Kenai Borough were about what we have already started here. So I just want to give confidence to our community that we're actually a step ahead of a lot of what's going on. So that makes me happy in my role to be able that we're proactive. So
Excellent.
that's it for me.
Thank you. Board Member Cat.
Do we have any test kits in Seward currently?
That's actually one of the main. So testing, that's where I was leading with our capacity. So right now at Providence, so the capacity nationwide, you've probably seen headlines and news about testing because it's a big deal. People are going to want to come in and get tested, or employers are gonna say, you can't work for me until you get tested. The testing is still limited. For example, we have 2 kits here in Seward. That's not to freak people out. And that could change. So now we're going to potentially, right now it's extremely limited. So we can't just have people come in and say, I want to know if I have COVID-19 or not. The point is people are sick, we go through the criteria, and if they meet certain criteria and they're under investigation, then we escalate it, and it's actually a decision that's made by the state or the CDC whether or not, because that resource is really limited. But as we start to get more our seasonal populations and people that are mixing and exposing, then we are discussing how we can deal with that. I know some places that have more testing are doing drive-through testing and things like that. But right now, people can't just come in and get tested because there just aren't.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming and speaking to this board. Really appreciate that. Could you speak to the number of available beds you might have for advanced care in Seward?
Yeah, so our hospital is small, it's licensed for 6 beds. So we really only have, can admit 6 patients to our facility, though in the past we've had more with the surge, with the emergency, things happen. We have transfer agreements, obviously, with Providence and Anchorage. So if we had people that were sick and needed higher level of care, then we would be sending them north. So it's going to be a challenge if there's a lot of cases in Anchorage and then there's a lot of cases here. So my stress is let's keep our community as healthy as possible, and then really look at our high-risk populations like our seniors, the group homes, the prison, our staff at Providence, to try to keep them as healthy as possible. So, yeah.
Okay, well that's, I'm gonna run those numbers in my head real quick, but
Yeah.
you said 60% could get infected at the low end, right? So 15% of those people will require some sort of advanced medical care, and this
Well,
is.
they get more sicker, but that doesn't necessarily.
But in
not
any event
necessarily
here,
mean ICU
we're looking
or
at
anything.
hundreds of patients, not
Potentially.
6.
Yeah.
So, as we are a cruise ship port, I would like some reassurance that there's plans in place for this. Maybe.
Yeah, we're working on our plan right now. We're just getting rolling on a lot of that.
And,
But we'll keep you guys updated as
thank
to
you.
what we work out. So-
Can I just address that quickly? So one of the points of the coordination is, the control measures before cruise ships arrive here. Of course, you can't screen people if they're not showing symptoms or whatever, but that's a huge topic of debate, and because all over Alaska, the tourism industry and sport fishing and things like that, that's kind of the meat of our economy in the summertime. So it is being addressed, and we do see those gaps, and so it's all over the place, but it is a major concern. Probably top of the list about how to prepare for that. See if anything was.
And there's, a period of exposure, so not everyone's going to be sick at the same time.
Well,
but that's,
I mean,
But we're still
we do know what
pushing
Seward looks
ourselves.
like in the
Yeah.
summertime, and we cannot screen everybody that's coming to this town. That's not possible. And it is a port, and if you're looking at, of all the places, this is one where you could have something spring up very fast. And like, as you said, if it's bad here, it's probably bad in Anchorage.
Right.
So we're not going to be able to get bailed out by a bigger city. And anything that, this is kind of unprecedented, I do believe. So this board in particular, if there's anything that you want to bring to our attention, I think that we can offer some assistance in some small way. Certainly at least collect information and get it channeled in. And thank you again for coming.
One more question. We're hearing about shortages of things like hand sanitizer. So does Alaska have a plan like New York did of producing our own, or what are we going to do to address that?
I don't know what Alaska's doing, but I can tell you that Providence, we have enough. We are tracking our supplies as a system wide, and we are prepared to handle a fair amount of how many days. They cracked down on how many patients, but how many days could we handle with our situation. We are prepared at least currently with our supply stock here in Seward. But as of the state, I can't answer that.
Right, and what about people, right? I mean, you all are great, but we're supposed to be hand sanitizing, like in the hotels and all of that, so it's,
So one of the hand sanitizer, I mean, not to make you rush down to Safeway and buy that, but you can make your own essentially. So you can get the pure aloe vera gel, and there's recipes online with your rubbing alcohol. So there are alternatives. I don't know what the supply chain is for that locally. We just track for the hospital and get our resources that way. There is some misconception about masks. People, the N95 mask, people think that's actually going to protect you more. But there are some very specific requirements that you have to get fit tested every year. Anything from shape of your face or facial hair, it's going to make it non-effective. So getting an N95 specific mask actually isn't going to help protect you any more than just a regular cone mask or other, there's surgical masks, there's different things. So people who are hoarding them because they say N95 on them is not actually helping. We need to get those to our first responders and make sure that they have them when they need them too. So you can just kind of spread that news in the community. N95 doesn't really protect you any better than another mask unless you have been certified for that piece of equipment.
It actually protects you less.
It protects you less.
It's not big.
So that's a question that I have. I know that in the guidance it says when you're sick to wear a mask because you're protecting others by preventing the spread. But what about wearing a mask when you're not sick? Because I feel like that's everyone's instinct. Can you speak to the effectiveness of that?
So if you talk about mode of transmission of a virus, we want to keep it off our hands because we're touching our eyes and our face a lot. So when you wear a mask, you're actually touching your face, versus the statistic out there, but a lot more because you're adjusting that mask. So you're actually putting yourself more at risk by wearing a mask. And as you breathe through that mask, it's getting concentrated on the front of the mask, and then you touch that. And so in healthcare, we train people on how to handle masks, how to wash their hands after, and everything like that. So it's actually more of a risk for people that are just a lay person wearing a mask to try to protect themselves. The best thing is to train yourself not to touch your face, which is really hard to do.
I've been very conscious
And,
of it.
and wash your hands often and wash down your high touch surfaces, things that are touched a lot. So.
I have one more hard question because this is more of a bigger systemic question, but I know that what I'm hearing from people who are planning to come here this summer is that they're not really scared of the virus. They're scared that their travel is going to be restricted. And so can you speak to travel restriction and what those thresholds are to start seeing airlines not flying? Because I think that is the biggest fear that I'm hearing from people.
I'm not.
Do you want me to speak? Okay,
Yeah.
so even our caregivers, our staff members have come to me personally and said, hey, I want to take my holiday. Am I going to get stuck in quarantine? I'm planning to travel overseas in a couple months. Don't worry, I'll take precautions. But right now, there's no mandatory. It's the same process. If you're showing symptoms, they're going to ask you just the same process we have when people are coming in here. They check your passport, they ask you questions, you go through that screening process. So people can go on their holidays. They need to make if they're going on a cruise, well, there's a little risk there because if something does happen on that ship, you're trapped there. But if you're over land or you're flying, there's going to be the other means of way to get out of there, but also to be tested or whatever it needs to be. But I know there's a lot of social anxiety, and we do want people to feel comfortable traveling here or going out. So that message is well, the message changes every day. It's social distancing, some of the common sense stuff. But right now, people aren't going to be forced to stay away or to stay in. A lot of it's voluntary quarantine or voluntary isolation. So I'm not sure if that helped you much, but right now I'm planning on just traveling still too. But
Perfect.
Taking all precautions, of course.
Thank you.
One last. Kristen, you said any household cleaner can break this up. So when we're talking about, you kept saying wipe down the area in front of you when you're speaking. Does it need to be a disinfectant? Does it have to be some sort of Clorox wipe? Could it be simple green?
The virus is very fragile, so just friction will break it apart. So, if you scrub with soap with no disinfectant, that's why washing your hands is super effective. But there's some recommendations. The CDC had 60% alcohol. 1% peroxide, or it was like 0.1% bleach will do it. And so that is way lower than what is in like a regular wipe that you would buy from the store. So so that's why they're saying most household cleaners are effective. Just the act of cleaning is probably effective, even if it's just a rag. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time and for answering our questions. Okay. So, moving on to new business. Item 3, consider rescheduling the April 15th, 2020 work session to April 22nd, 2020. I believe this came from the clerk's office. Okay.
So the reason I put this in here is the week of the April 15th work session and, let's see, 2 weeks after that, we have the auditors here and they're going to be using council chambers. We don't have to move that work session though. If we want to leave it, we can just ask them to leave the room for that hour or 2 hours and we could do it that way.
I won't be here the 22nd.
You won't be here the 22nd? I'm going to be teaching a class at AbTech that week, and that would be harder for me to get away. But that's not just up to me. Is everyone going to be able to be here on the 15th? If we held it on the 15th?
That's the regular date, right?
That is the regular day, yes.
Yeah.
I can also say in the past that we've had them at the library.
Yeah.
If we need to move the location, we've had it downstairs.
And I don't know if
in the
that's a problem for you because of the recording
You just have to announce it.
system and,
You just have to announce it at your beginning of the month meeting.
right. Since it is just a work session.
Yeah, and we can ask the auditors to just leave the room for that hour if that's easiest and just leave it
Well,
on
it's
the
lunch
regular day.
break.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think the issue is that they have financial documents that are out, but I think you can just put a sheet over the table,
They-
right?
Yeah.
So,
I believe they covered them last time.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's what we did last time, as I recall.
Well, if that will work, then great. If they are for some reason not able to leave, then we can look into maybe holding the meeting at another location.
Okay.
If possible. Thank you. Okay. All right, item 4. This is the big one. Determine and provide recommendation to council on electric department matters. And I would like to turn this discussion over to Board Member Smith, as I know that the electric ad hoc committee,
Energy.
the energy ad hoc committee had a chance to meet before this meeting, and I was wondering if you could share with us what you discussed and what steps forward you have for the board.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, we looked at, I would like to note for the record, we didn't quite get through the review of the working session. There was some rather significant questions that we didn't get a chance to review. And with those still out there on the table, I guess the two largest concerns that I identified and discussed with our subcommittee were the power factor adjustment and the interconnect policy, and really it's almost like a lack thereof at this point. We still need a lot of work to do there to get to the point where we can have our customers or residents be able to install a system and have some reasonable expectation that they can hook it up. So those were the two main takeaways there. I believe in our work session, we looked at the rates and you know, they're relatively proportional for the region. There's not a lot we can do about that. We're not really in charge of that. We determined that was True Gatch Electric. So from this point on forward there, just separating out those two issues, the interconnect and the power factor adjustment, were kind of the key takeaways there.
So I have a question for the clerk. Is it too late to add a topic to our work session for next week? So I was wondering if you would be willing to have a discussion with the board at the work session about that power factor adjustment, and maybe have a chance for us all to ask questions in a less formal setting and talk about that?
Yes, that sounds
Okay,
good.
yes,
Yeah.
that'll give you some time to maybe prepare something to bring to us.
And,
Ms.
and
PACAB.
also, perhaps could you go through and identify the misinformation that we were given at the work session? I'm looking specifically at the 18 years, 12-year business, where it's really 30 years.
Yes.
18 years to pay for themselves, and they only have a 12-year lifespan, whereas now I believe they have a 30-year warranty.
Typically, so the,
And so the payback, that whole thing about it's not
For solar
financially
panels, we're talking about.
feasible is not accurate.
that's an item I'd like to maybe hold for one of our energy workshop topic ideas. It doesn't directly relate to the.
Okay,
That's a choice that the customer has to make. If they want to go with something that's only going to last 12 years, they can make that choice if they choose. But
but that was offered up as a reason
That
why we
was-
don't need to be,
why we don't need to be proactive.
right.
So the other difficult thing on this topic is that, as you said, we didn't get through it in our work session, and in the
Yes.
council work session, they didn't get through everything either. Has the second electric department work session been scheduled, to your knowledge? Mary
Yes.
Carey? Do you know what the date of that is?
The 23rd of this
The
month.
23rd of this month?
Yes.
Okay. So, I definitely want to talk about the things that we've already addressed at this next work session, because we need to stay on top of things. But we are going to have another work session with council on the 23rd, or the electric department will, and all members of this board are invited to attend. And after that work session, I'm sure we'll have additional questions. So we might put a topic on next month's agenda to have the electric department come back and talk to us again. But if we can talk about that power factor adjustment and the changes we'd like to make to the interconnect policy, just so that we're continuing to move forward with the things that we know about, then we'll have more information on the 23rd of this month, and we can move forward from there with resolutions to council or how we want to proceed. Thank you guys very much for meeting outside of the board time. That's so useful, and I thank you for taking the time to do that. I really look forward to hearing what you have to say at the work session. Does anyone have any additional discussion on that topic at this time?
No, that'll
Okay.
time out well, because
Okay.
that's next week.
Yes.
And then we have the 23rd. So
Yeah.
that's good,
Yeah, perfect.
good.
Okay, the last item, discuss sending a member of the Port and Commerce Advisory Board to the Electrify Alaska Conference in Cordova, April 27th to the 29th of 2020. And I had meant to put together some numbers on what this would cost, and I didn't, so I apologize for that. This was brought to my attention by Mr. Kaluza, and I I contacted the organizers of the event and asked them if there was anyone from Seward attending, and they said no, but that they would really love to have someone there. The clerk included the agenda, or the preliminary agenda for the conference in here, and really it's a conference being held in Cordova, hosted by the Cordova Electric Cooperative in partnership with the Beneficial Electrification League, the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, and the Natural Resources Defense Council. And topics are including things like electric vehicles, electric ships, electric planes, talking about electric air, water, and ground source heat pumps. There's a mayor's roundtable there, and I would love to see someone from Seward there. We do have a travel budget, but again, I don't know what the numbers are going to be to send someone to this. It would be airfare plus 2 nights in a hotel, or potentially 3 nights. Board
I'm
Member
just
Paquette?
curious, is this conference predominantly for off-the-grid communities?
No,
Okay.
no. This conference is forward-looking at technologies that are, at electric technologies that we are going to see in the future, and how to integrate them into our communities, as well as looking at ways to have more sustainable energy practices in your community. I think it's going to be a good meeting of the minds, and I just think it would be great to have Seward represented. Now, the first question is anyone available those dates? And then we need to look at budget. And if not, I wanted to bring it up because there are members of council here, and perhaps there's a council member who could attend. out of their travel budget. I think that I think it's just a great event, and they really would like to see Seward represented. And even if it's not a member of one of the boards or commissions, it could perhaps be someone from the electric department. But first, I just wanted to bring it before you all and see if there was anyone available or interested and available. I know those two things at the same time is difficult this time of year. Yeah.
Interested but not available.
Interested but not available.
I would say the same.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunate. I'm hoping this is, they said they plan to have this be an annual event, and so if we're not able to attend this year, perhaps with some more forward planning, when we know the dates for next year, we can get this on the schedule a little earlier. But now that it's out there in the ether, if anyone is interested in going, I can provide that information for you about that conference.
I would agree. It seems like someone should go if we can pull it off. You know, I could make myself free, but I'm not the right person to send. So, you know, I feel like Ben would be the person to send, and Ben's not free. So if we could find somebody that would be available and a good match, I would support it.
Well,
Is it
please.
possible to use our budget to send a citizen?
Ooh, that's a good question. Madam Clerk,
I mean, I guess you could.
potentially?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Regis.
So I think like when council sent folks, civilians over to Korea and stuff like that, they had to be approved through council. I'm not sure how that would work through us, because you've given up
Right.
citizens' money.
Taxpayer money.
Right.
yeah.
So
Right.
I would, if you're gonna do that, I would suggest going through council.
Okay. And we will have, we still have time to get on the council agenda for April before this happens. The problem would be soliciting applications, because I'm guessing it's going to have to be an open process. So maybe we can just look into that, and what that would look like, and I can help put together the numbers for that. But I'm glad to hear there's interest. I hope we can pull it off to send someone there.
And if there's anybody in the citizenry that's interested, then let us know so we can help make that happen.
Okay. Well, that brings us to informational items and reports. There are the, as I try not to touch my face, tips to avoid coronavirus in the packet. Item 11, citizen comments. Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak? Yes. Miss Ballou.
Brenda Blue, Inside the City. You know, in the past, council has solicited interest from citizens, and so as a board, you could also solicit interest from citizens, make a motion, you know, as a board, if you find someone interested, and furnish up to X dollars for their travel. That's within your authority to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our first meeting in April
It's on the 1st.
is on the 1st.
No fooling.
So, sorry, we're still in citizen comments. Mr. McClellan.
Tony Bachman, Inside City Limits. My views and my comments are mine and not of the council. I get a little concerned sometimes when I hear about the coronavirus and the spread of it, because I know as a person who is not financially secure all the time, that when I think about other people and I hear on the news that a lot of people cannot even deal with $1,000 bill or an unexpected bill or some kind of catastrophe in their life, I always think too, how would somebody else, how would they handle that? And I got to talk to Stephen earlier this week, and I think one of the important points was that self-quarantine and calling in, and if you think you are sick, to call in to the health center. There's a sliding scale. They work with people, and I guess my plea is to the employers to think about how we can help employees if they're in this situation, to protect them from other people if they are sick or they feel they are sick. And maybe starting that conversation on how, if we're trying to protect the whole community, how individual employers can step up and help protect the whole community by either providing paid time off, or helping, or other people knowing, or if you need help, reaching out to the community and asking for help. I know there's tons of people who are willing to drop things off on people's doorstep, or help them out where they're needed. And there's lots of different nonprofit groups in the community. So just reach out if you ever feel like you can't handle something like that, because I think this community is amazing and very helpful and very supportive of people, and we want to keep everyone safe. So if you do feel that it's overwhelming, people can help. And I had some questions about the code and installation, codes and electric stuff, because I feel like every time everyone has a work session, it never gets to being completed. So we always have all these questions left over, and maybe we can figure out some solution with everyone to get the answers that we need, because it always seems like there's just more and more and more questions. Just like the power factor adjustment, which is always a hard topic. I'm also at the stable suit meeting tonight, and be a citizen that would like to be involved with that effort. Also, I will be attending the climate action meeting on the 29th, and I've noticed that there's a lot of other. They only have 3 minutes.
5.
Sorry. I noticed that there was a lot of other sustainable meetings that were happening in town, and I've been able to talk with Jason Bicklin from the chamber to see how we can kind of round everyone together. There seems to be a lot of movements with the Katuchek, with the Native tribe, with the university, with PACAB, and I think nobody's going anywhere because everybody's disjointed somewhere. So maybe getting all that together and using the chamber as a tool to, because they have the sustainable tourism meeting, so I'm sure that they're involved and interested in that as well. So using them as a tool to get everyone together. And it seems like Katuchek has resources and money that they want to put into this. They're more focused on subsistence, food, hunting and gathering. But when you look at their worksheet on what it affects everything in climate change. That was everything that was brought forward in the public meeting from the first meetings with the then chair of PACAB, but now mayor, and Laura. So that was a great meeting because it identified all those things, but all those things correlate to each group. So hopefully working together on those ideas, we can figure out a solution quicker or get a climate action plan done in a more expeditious manner that way.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none. That brings us to board and administration comments and response to citizen comments. Starting over here.
Okay, thank you for all for coming. This is a pretty good turnout for a PACAB meeting, and so I guess where to start here? I don't want to go too long. The COVID stuff, clearly this is going to be an issue for this community, more so than your average community, perhaps in the lower 48 somewhere. This is a major port, and a laundry list of reasons why it's going to be important for Seward. I would think that going forward, having some more of a clearinghouse for information, who's working on what, where the responsibilities are, might be a good idea. I know that right now it looks to me like we're still treating it like it was in China, and this is clearly not the case now. We don't need to be screening passports. This is already community spread. It's in the United States, and there's no way we're going to prevent it from coming to town. So I feel like the response is what it should have been in January. And going forward, we need to be looking forward, not looking back. And yes, we can learn from some of the lessons over there, but this is clearly new territory here. And on that note, the other item, thank you, Mr. Kaluza, for bring it to the public's attention of your struggles. And just rest assured, we are diligently working on ways to help you out there and help everybody else out that wants to install solar. And we can wrap that back around to community preparedness. If you have solar panels on your roof and worst case scenario happens, a big earthquake or whatever, that's a resource that you can use to keep your food cold, keep your neighbor's food cold, to keep the community going. And without that here, well, it's not here. And I feel that's a real shame. And right now is the time to be looking into those systems. The prices are less than $1 a watt, and that's really incredible. And we're not taking advantage of it, and that's a shame.
Thank you.
And thank you all for the opportunity here.
Former Protect.
Thank you to everybody for coming and for staying. It's been a great meeting. I have a couple of things. Mr. Kaluza, could you please forward us that 28-page email? Would you mind?
Sure.
I think it would be informative and helpful to have so we have the full picture.
Happy to forward it.
Right, I don't print it out, but let's see, what else? The energy meeting is the 19th?
Yes.
Next week. So I know Councilmember Baclan said the 29th, so I don't know if there's another meeting. Okay. And then one thing that occurs to me, and this is like really probably very minute in terms of focus, but we're not supposed to shake hands, and yet we're sharing pens and pencils. So I think there's some kind of, protocol that needs to be in place for things like that. Like, we have to really start thinking about all that stuff. And I'm seeing the clerk nod her head, so maybe they are already wiped. But everybody needs, it's just those little things that we need to start thinking about. So, and I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, just echo what everybody said. Thank you for coming. We don't usually Phil's here all the time, but not everybody else. So we appreciate it. I really appreciate the folks from Providence coming and sharing their information. Took a lot of good notes with that stuff. I would like to maybe go back to what Brenda said. Maybe we need to make a motion about getting some citizens engaged in this energy meeting in Cordova, and I don't know if we can do that now or not. But
I think we can.
Not during board and administrative response to citizen comments.
So we can't have any more action at this meeting then? No? Okay.
You have April 1st coming up, so.
Yes. It's late to solicit interest, though. Great idea. Missed opportunity. So thank you again to everyone. Thank you for all of the great information that was shared today, Mr. Regis.
I'll make a suggestion. You have a council meeting coming up that could get on their board to put out the notice for people interested.
That's a great idea. Thank you. And did you have any other comments you wanted to
I
make?
did not. I just want to throw that out there.
Okay.
That you do have a meeting coming up that the council could help you out with.
Yeah. Excellent. I feel like I learned a lot today. We hear a lot about COVID-19. There's lots of sources, and as you said, the information is changing every day, and I think that can be overwhelming. So thank you for sharing the resources on where people should go for the best information, because I think my biggest fear is misinformation right now. That the misinformation is going to stoke fears, and that's what's going to cause the economic impact. I think that knowing that it will come here, and it's just a fact, I think that's good to be in that mindset. And it makes me really happy that I live in a community like Seward, because I know that in this town, people are going to step up and take care of each other. And Tony, like you were saying with businesses, making sure they take care of their employees, I just have no doubt in my mind that that's going to happen. I think it's great that we need to keep talking about it, but I love this town, and I know that we're gonna get through this. So, the Sustainable Seward meeting tonight, they are going to be talking about a Kenai Peninsula Sustainable Resource Commission that they're trying to stand up. There's going to be a a phone call about that. Someone's phoning in to talk about that. I'm not able to attend tonight, but for anyone who's interested. And there are a lot of different groups that are starting to talk about these issues, and it is really important that we bring them together. I thank you so much for going to that meeting on the 19th, and Board Member Paquette and Board Member Jaffa will also be at that meeting about climate action planning. And I think that part of that process is bringing all those stakeholders together so that we're all on the same page and we're all moving forward together. So I look forward to making progress on those issues as the year continues. I know that we've kind of lagged, but I think that having those resources from Anchorage and those people who have done this planning before is going to be so valuable in making us more efficient as we start this process in Seward. All right. Thank you so much. Meeting adjourned.
So the meeting was adjourned at 1:05.
So I think we all understand here, I'm concerned about getting people's heads around the power factor adjustment.